Bro. Now we've got our guest coming on. I guess he's ready. We're gonna have Jon Kopel in just a second, and I've been in touch with him through email. I've not met this gentleman yet, but I'm excited to talk to him through Skype. And I'll tell you a little bit about him, and I'm extremely excited to talk to him about that because some of you know my story, and I'll talk more about this with Jon. We'll wait to get him on the line, but basically, that's where I discovered meditation was when I got locked up in 2005, and I ended up spending 18 months of my life, my precious life, behind bars and learning a lot about myself, not because of where I was at, but because I chose to go inwardly and to, find peace in some of the most ego-filled places that there can be. Behind bars, people generally tend to stick to what they know, which is either their race or some religion and whatever makes them feel good, to get out and possibly come back. And it took me a couple of times. I went back and forth over a couple of years, but I do know that that was the beginning of me discovering meditation and getting into deeper spiritual practices. So I think these programs are amazing, and we talked about this on Lessons in Consciousness with Bruce King. Check that out Wednesday nights. There's been studies where meditation groups come into areas and crime has actually gone down in those areas. So there are measurable effects of meditation, and it helps in prison. So let's see if we can get Jon on the line. Oh, I need water. Hello, Jon, are you there?
I'm here. How are you?
I'm doing well. Let's go ahead and hear a little bit about you. I want to introduce you. I want you to introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure. I like, first of all, I love your website. I love your theme of the conscious resistor, which is exactly what I am. I've had a guru and been on the spiritual path for almost 40 years. I've lived in India. I've traveled with great saints. And I'm also, like you, in the resistance. And I was really, by the way, what I saw of you was fantastic. You were fearless and you were calm. And those are signs of a yogi. And I noticed on your website that you have a picture, and maybe it's someone that you know, of a yogi there who practices equanimity in adversity. And these are fantastic qualities that we need to have. And in this day and age, we really need it. It's like unbelievable what's happening in the world. So I've been, as I mentioned before, a few years ago, I started to, first, I've been awake to the spiritual, but not to what's really going on in the world until a few years ago. And so I've become active in trying to stop the pollution, the poisoning of the environment, the food, the taking away of our rights, our constitutional rights. One of the reasons I wanted you to see me is because I have my Ron Paul banner from when I worked for trying to help Ron get elected. And so I'm active in that in any way. I mean, to me, it's unprecedented what's going on. But you also wanted to ask me, and I could go on, but if you want to ask me about the prison work that I do, or whatever you want to ask me, it's fine.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time, and I'm really glad that you reached out to me. I'm always happy when people reach out to me and just try to communicate and work together, because that's what I fully believe is happening and what we need to do. So I'm always willing to work with another spiritual soul and somebody who's bringing meditation. I don't know if you just heard me when I was introducing you, but I myself have spent a little bit of time behind bars from 2005 till 2009. I was in and out of prison, ended up doing an 18-month sentence and a year on probation, and that's where I discovered meditation on my own. And I fully understand the power of meditation and think that prisons and places, institutions like that are necessary. They really need it. They need those type of programs to help people, because there's so much ego and so much insecurity, really, is what it is, and people just trying to figure out where they want to go and what they're going to do with their life, that I think meditation is the perfect tool to help them find their way.
What kind of meditation did you learn in prison?
Well, when I first got locked up, an interesting experience where I every Sunday in Houston in the Chronicle, or every Saturday, they have a religion section, and in the religion section they list various quotes from all the different religions, and they had a quote from the Dhammapada, and basically, I can't remember what it was that they shared, but whatever it was, it struck me. It struck me immediately, and I contacted my grandmother and got her to send me whatever she could on Zen Buddhism and meditation itself. So that's where I started. I started out with Zazen and with just getting into understanding Zen of the mind. And of course, while I was in prison, my the books I had access to was pretty limited, but I did get quite a few. And once I got out, I pursued it further, and I've been from that point discovering connections to my political beliefs now, which are more anarchist, and just believing everybody's a free human and their own experience. And so it's all kind of tied together now after those beautiful experiences, getting locked up and discovering my own mind.
Um, I'd love to share a little bit about that work that I do, and also what my uh, guru would say, and about people in prison, and in general. And he said that, and his name, and I don't know if I'll get this video up where you can see. I wanted to show you a picture, but he said, God dwells within you as you. And he also said, see God in each other. And his name, my first guru, was Swami Muktananda, which means literally the bliss of freedom. And what he said, referring to people who are incarcerated, is that freedom is a state of being, and it doesn't matter whether you're in prison or not in prison. It's your own being, and we're all connected to God, but we don't see that. We're not aware of that because of our limitations, our mental constructs, our negative emotions, and identification with the physical body, when in reality we are not different from God. And meditation is the process by which we see that. We uncover the veil. And there have been great beings who have been incarcerated. And I can't remember offhand, but even I believe Lord Krishna, from the Indian culture, from the Indian history, who is revered by countless people, I believe he was born in prison. I could be wrong about that, but there are stories like that. So, well, let me stop for a minute and see if I should go on. If you have any questions.
Oh no, actually, I think that's a really interesting fact. Yeah, I was unaware of that Krishna might have been born in prison, but it doesn't really surprise me, honestly, to find that the teachings could spring from from hardship. And as you said, that's where you really can reveal yourself, through meditation. And in prison, for me, being locked up, it's basically you have no other escape anymore. If you all other times in your life, there's somebody to call. You can call a mother, you can call a friend, you can call somebody to bail you out of the trouble you've gotten in. But when you find yourself in that situation where you have completely lack of control over your own life, and somebody is now taking that and deciding when you eat, where you go, when you go to sleep, all these type of things, it really, for me and for others I've seen, can cause you to reevaluate everything about your life and your place, and yes, deeper questions about God. I remember the second time because I had basically had an experience of getting locked up for a year straight, and then I was out for about 5 months, and I went back for another 3 months. And in that second time I went back, I was really even more determined to figure out what I had, why I couldn't figure it out, why I was just still screwing up. And I read a lot of different books, and one of them that I read that was really influential to me in a lot of ways was called Conversations with God. And it's a really powerful book that just, for me, helped me understand my deeper meaning of what God, the universe, this one consciousness really means for my understanding, and how, what I was doing to myself was basically keeping me from being that God manifest, from being, the highest me that I could be, which is now what I guess I'm dedicating my path and my time to, is to rediscovering that who that person is, and trying to present that to the world and to inspire others to find their highest good. And meditation is definitely an amazing tool for that. So you've been doing, how did you first get involved in the prison meditation? Can we hear more about that?
Sure. The program that I work with is called the Siddha Yoga Prison Project. It's spelled Siddha, Siddha Yoga Prison Project, and it's been going on for at least 35 years in all around the United States. And of course, you can Google that, and also from the Siddha Yoga website, Siddhayoga, siddhayoga.org. I believe there is a link somewhere on that page to the Siddha Yoga Prison Project. And so there have been people, we go through it's for people who are on this spiritual path, who for a little while, who have, committed to it, that have the opportunity to go in as teachers. And, I did want to, something I thought of, I wanted to share with you um, about that, about the actual training of doing this. But we train, and then we go into prisons, and sometimes the arrangements are already set up. We can just go in. Sometimes we have to set them up ourselves. And, I have great experiences. And one of the things, I was actually born Jewish, but I never practiced that, and I never was into that. But when I got on the spiritual path and found my guru, I became more receptive and tolerant of other paths, and that includes becoming fond of Jesus. And in the training that we had um, in order to go into prison, um, there was someone who shared a quote, um, and I'm trying to actually bring it up, from what Jesus said about that. And it was really beautiful. And I'm just about to get it right now, because well, I'll come back to that. And I'll tell. So I go into, and when I find that, so I go into prisons, and of course, it's a great thing for me as well as for them. And the understanding that we have, those of us who do this, is that we're not, of course, we're not, obviously not any better than anyone in prison, but also that it's an opportunity for us, just like it's opportunity for the person who comes to the program, for us to grow and to learn from that experience. So,
Yeah,
you know,
I just want to interject briefly right there, John. We have a comment from the chat room that I just wanted to comment on, and definitely everyone feel free to comment, or if you're in the live stream, and if you're listening through the Rundown Live tune-in app through your phone or on Freedom Phalanx Radio Network, thank you guys for tuning in. But we have a comment here in the chat. Kronos said, "We are not God, but we do share godlike aspects," and I think I can agree with that. I don't have a problem with that statement.
I think that's fine. I don't. I'm not trying to um, create any controversy here, and each person has their own experience, their own understanding.
Exactly.
and that's fine. Um, and at the same time, the more I have pursued my path, and particularly intensely, the more I have the experience that God is with me all the time. And I can't find the quote from where I saved it, unfortunately, but Jesus said something to the effect that come and visit me in prison. Um, and Jesus is everywhere in different forms, and in the Indian tradition, there are other great beings, great saints who also take birth. Um, anyway, so I'm respectful and grateful and appreciative of these different great beings and great saints. And so Jesus said, "Come and visit me in prison." And when I heard that, it was beautiful. I felt this love. I felt that I was doing something good, and it was great.
I wanna go ahead and just kind of touch on this for a second because I've in the past 2 years or so as an activist, the more I've decided that there was no way for me to any longer to separate my spiritual self from my activist political self. That everything I was doing on either side was influenced by the other one. Um, and I've become more comfortable with saying things such as God or talking about Christ or talking about different teachings. I've also instantly seen a pushback from some people who are uncomfortable, as there is a pretty strong, vein of anarchists who are atheists, what they would consider strictly rational in their viewpoint. And as you said earlier, I do believe that not only does is there no one path towards liberty, but there's also no one path towards happiness in the spiritual or lack of spiritual sense. And so I just want to throw that out there for anyone who may be listening and have some type of gut reaction to hearing the word Christ or Jesus and be like, wow, what did I tune into? But that's really what the conscious resistance is about. And my viewpoint is basically allowing each individual to access their own understanding and interpretation of God or nature or whatever you want to call it. Even if you were an atheist and don't believe in anything, but you believe in the essence of life, you believe in maybe you have a scientific outlook, but there's some way for you to frame. And if you don't, then I encourage you, because I do believe that yes, there are many paths, but I think that pursuing spirituality while pursuing a path of freedom and understanding of that and spreading that awareness for others, that those two go hand in hand, like I don't know, like something that goes hand in hand together. I don't know, but you know what I'm saying. So yes, pursue spirituality, because I believe it's a good answer. And if you're not comfortable, if you're not there yet, then just listen. I guess some people, I feel like we're often so afraid of something outside of our perspective or what we've been accustomed to, so it's like, oh wow. But I try to, for example, when I'm talking to my mother or someone else who has more of a strictly Christian understanding of the world, but we understand that there's a struggle for power and there's a struggle for freedom, and the people are trying to awaken and things like that, we can talk about that. And when she gets into the specifics of her religion, I hear where she's at and I understand that from her perspective, and then I can filter that and understand it in my own words without the need to be like, no mom, that's not right. Don't you understand the contradictions of the Bible and this and that? Maybe Jesus was a mushroom. I don't know. There's a lot of different things out there. If you've never looked into that, look into that mushroom cult. But yeah, definitely. So there's a lot of answers out there, and I just want to throw that out there, John, because you mentioned that. No, and I've got another question I want to hit to you. I think we've got a few more minutes with you, and this is just kind of a broad question, but what does freedom mean to you?
That's a fantastic question. Um, Freedom means, for me, it doesn't just mean freedom from tyranny. And by the way, I wanted to mention something that Thomas Jefferson, the founding father, said, that resistance to tyrants is obedience to God, and that's a beautiful understanding. And I, like you, I struggle and I contemplate this every day. And um, I just want to mention one other thing. There's a great scripture from India called the Bhagavad Gita, which literally means the song of God. And the story arises, and the teachings arise from someone named Arjuna, who is a follower of Lord Krishna, and he's supposed to go into battle with this world battle, epic battle, with many of his own family on the other side. And Krishna says to him, it's your duty to fight, because that's your role. And you're doing this for the good. And I'm not necessarily saying we have to go out and fight wars. I love Mahatma Gandhi. It's a big inspiration for me, nonviolent resistance. And I still have to answer your question about freedom. But my first guru's actual name, Muktananda, literally means the bliss of freedom. And there is a spiritual, it's not just a spiritual, it's a physical state of ecstasy, of bliss, living in this world, but being not of the world. That is our own experience. And by the way, about that one caller who asked about, not believing in God, I would say to that person, believe in your own goodness. And I think that's something that we all can understand. So freedom is actually, for me, it's a state of being where I have transcended my identification with my physical body, with my emotions, with who I think I am, and I am connected to divine source.
Connected to divine source. Wow, that's beautiful. So okay, can you explain to me and your understanding, John, how and from your viewpoint, hey everyone, the chat is alive. Everybody's loving this conversation, by the way. So thank you for being here and talking about this. But
By the way, I mentioned this before. You do an incredible job, and I love your website. I love what you do. It's so valuable.
I really appreciate that, and things like that make it a lot easier to continue when it gets difficult, as I'm sure you know. So, from one brother to another, I really appreciate that, and I just really want to get your viewpoint on how has your spiritual practice over the years helped you continue as an activist. I myself often bounce between extremes of overdoing work and thinking like, oh, that's it, I'm done, I can't be an activist anymore, I have to just go away, and then getting my spiritual practice back in line every day and things like that. And how do you keep from being burnt out as a spiritual person in this often dark battle?
Where do you come up with these incredible questions one after the other?
I don't know, somebody's speaking them to me.
It's an excellent question, and I can't wait to answer that question. For me, I do my spiritual practices every day, hours every day, and everyone has the practices that they love. For me, it's chanting. And there's two, and I would actually like, just for a few seconds, to let you listen to two different mantras. One that
Do it.
the first one is my guru singing, and it's Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, and she sings it slowly, and that means I bow to my inner self, the God within me. And in the same way that Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within, it's the same principle. So let me turn that on.
Yeah, go ahead and do that. We've got you for about a couple more minutes, John, so go ahead. I want to hear those for sure, and then I want to let you wrap up.
I'm sorry?
I said we've got you for a couple more minutes. I want to hear the mantras, and then I want you to go ahead and wrap it up for us tonight.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
It's playing right now. Just maybe 15 seconds. So, um, I really appreciate you having. Are you there?
We're still here, John.
Okay. I really appreciate you having me on, and um, what keeps me going is these chanting. This I also chant these other mantras, which I also love, with the people called the Hare Krishnas as well, because I love music. I love singing to God in a melodic way, and it awakens in me this divine love, and it awakens this fearlessness in me, which allows me to work at resistance to tyranny.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, John, for coming on and talking to us tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest tonight has been Jon Kopel. He's a resistance fighter, been fighting for a long time, and more importantly, he is a spiritual being who is connecting to God every day, and one of the many, many beautiful people out there who are fighting to change this world. Thank you for joining us tonight, John.
Thank you, Derrick, and keep up the good work.
Will do.